now, and working with individuals within families. And actually, when I work with an individual, I work with them in the way that there's a whole bunch of people in the room, their family, my family, because we're all here in the room or online. And that's taking a family systems approach to helping coaching people and helping people to grow, to understand that we're not just this individual all stuck out there all alone. No, we're a combination of our family of origins, intergenerational things that have gone on in the past in our families. So it didn't start with me. It doesn't start with me. It starts long ago. And if we can take that perspective, we can I think it's easier to get unstuck and easier to get more healthy, easier to recover, easier to grow up if we take that perspective. So that's why I like the Bowen family systems perspective, or Edwin Friedman, who is also Bowen, his perspective, because it really has provided people some freedom. On this topic, I really wanted to address this because it is probably more common than we realize. Many times people don't think about their families attacking, but I work with a lot of people in whose families are in attacking mode, even if it's simply a mode in which the family doesn't want you to grow up. You're still my child. I can ask you anything. I just had a client not long ago. His mother was asking, well, by the way, he's a well-known professional in his field of medicine, and his mother's asking him, well, when you bought this new car, did you get it on loan or did you pay cash for it? And he didn't want to tell her because he knew that information would go back to her and his dad, and they just talk about that and how inadequate he is or whatever. Or that, how can he be making that much money or not that much money? Or it just becomes fuel for the family gossip. And it's not really about him or caring about him. It's about, let me gather more information. Well, if you have that's another way a family can kind of attack. Let me get information from you. Let me get information from you. Now, it's not a severe attack as someone disinheriting you. Right. I understand that. But it still is a form of, we're not just being, there are games afoot. And when those family games start, it can feel very attacking. Families can attack emotionally, financially. I've heard all of these stories. Psychologically, they can be traumatizing, even spiritually or religiously. And I think since I have been a pastor in the past, I realized families will get even attacking where, if you're making that choice, then you're probably just going to go to hell. Well, isn't that an attack? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's an attack religiously. I mean, you can say, I disagree with you, or this is what I believe about hell or heaven or whatever, if we're going to talk about the religious area. But for me to say, well, this is, if you marry that person, then they'll never be a part of our family. Well, that's an attack too. Wait a minute, what, can't I decide who I marry? Isn't that something I get to choose? And many families, no, it isn't. It's a choice we all need to make, and you need to make it with us. And I'll talk about that with us here in a minute. So manipulating, rejecting, isolating, terrorizing even at times, making threats, ignoring, corrupting. And I've had some people, even parents, getting their kids involved in criminal activity, hitting, spiritual abuse, as I mentioned, financial maltreatment, lawsuits, etc. Scapegoating. Isn't scapegoating a family attacking if you're the scapegoat? Controlling, bullying, lying, withholding children or grandchildren, and many other ways as well. So those are some of the ways in which families can attack.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you for going over all those and, kind of maybe getting people to think about things they're aware of in their own families and how this has occurred for them. So let's talk about why. why is it that families attack?
And that's always a very good question. And of course, if we've grown up in a dysfunctional family, many times, guess who we blame if the family attacks? Me. What am I doing wrong? Why am I not being accepted? Why are they being critical of me? Why are they mistreating me in these ways? I must be defective. I must be bad. I must be worthless. I must be. So we tend to many times blame ourselves. And that's unfortunate. When actually the reasons often that families will attack to expel pain and anger they cannot handle in the system. It's not really about you. Now, forgive me, I know it affects you. I understand that. It definitely affects you, but it's not really about you. In a systems approach, and when you think of systems, it's the system cannot handle this anger and pain, and so it must go somewhere. And it goes to who gets attacked. Mm-hmm. And so then we all, as the family, if we're all doing this together or parts of the family, we all unite and feel better when we attack you. Because then I don't have to look at me. I don't have to look at my pain, anger, hurt, whatever I'm not willing to look at. And it goes to you. And so it's thank you very much for being the scapegoat and the recipient of the attack. Now I can go sleep at night.
Right.
So families attack to, number one, expel anger and pain that they can't handle in the system and in themselves. A second reason is families attack to maintain the family's super self. That's this one big self that is the family that you're a part of. And you need to stay a part of this big glob called the super self. Or in my family, my name is Wise. My mother's maiden name was Wardwell. So the Wise Wardwell super self is what I grew up in. And to maintain that super self, we all partake of that growing up. And as we become more adult, we want to be less a part of that super self and more a part of our real selves, myself, not a part of just this super self. And so sometimes I'll say, oh, well, that's a Wise Wardwell rule that I'm living by right now. And that they project the messages in which we need to say, not I am me, but it is I am us and I am we. And again, they will attack because it threatens that super self that's so comfortable, even if it's dysfunctional. It still has a certain equilibrium. It still has a certain stability, though maybe negatively, but it's still stable in a way. And families will attack to use power to deal with their weaknesses and failings and psychological and emotional issues. And if you are one to wander away from that super self or start to develop your own self, then the attack can begin. We've got to get you back in the fold. And it almost has that cult-like flavor. And some families are cults. I mean, they really are. And you better toe the line, keep the secrets, don't trust anybody outside the family, don't tell anybody outside the family what you know and what and secrets that we have. You know, that all should stay. Or there was a woman who said to me recently, oh yeah, don't air our dirty laundry out there. Air our dirty laundry. That's the message, that you keep quiet and keep the dirty laundry in here. Because and if you do differently, if you change that, now we're going to have to attack.
Yes, just let it fester inside.
Let it fester inside. We'll just keep it under the wraps of denial. We'll just act like it doesn't happen. Even if it's hurting somebody, we're just going to act like it's not happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Any more on that before I ask you my next
Well,
question?
the last thing would be families attack as a continuous extension of previous generational trauma. So families can attack because of trauma that has been in the family and it gets passed down and then attack. Generally, what I found is if there's an attacking family, there was an attacking family before that, and before that, and before that. I mean, it often doesn't just pop up in this generation. There's usually been some abuse or attack or in previous generations, which can be traumatizing. And then out of that trauma, we just keep on doing it.
Right.
And it continues on.
So here's a question I'm curious about, right? And people probably have different degrees of relationships with their families of origin, right? Some people are really thick in their families and they're in touch and they're together and all those kinds of things. So for people who like continue to feel, right, very connected to a family, even though it's an attacking family, like, why do we continue to feel that connection? And why can't we just walk away and live our own life?
Excellent question. And many times people will ask that question of themselves. Why do I stay connected? And because they're saying, first of all, many people are in denial and don't even accept or realize their families are attacking. That's number one. So they just stay connected. This is just the way it's always been. Hey, this is just my family. You just love them, even though they're taking all of your money, criticizing you every time you're together, putting you down, shaming you. Well, this is just my family. And aren't we supposed to just accept our families the way our? Well, yeah, we are to accept other people. I understand that. But attacking is a whole different matter. And so they will believe this is just they'll be in denial, so they don't walk away. They also fear what will happen if I do. And if I do walk away, I'll be all alone. I won't have any support of any kind. So I'll take this 95% attacking and negative toxicity to get 5% of if I ever need to borrow some money or something.
Right.
Because they'll be there for me.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, it comes at a big price.
Yeah,
that $500 loan is.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned money, because that is that holds such power over family relationships. Money is a big thing. That
major power.
Yep.
And who's going to help me when I have this baby? And who's going to, the normal things that family and good families might do. And we think we will lose all of that. Where will I go for Christmas? Where will I go for Thanksgiving or for, whatever holidays there are? Mm-hmm. And so we fear that loss and we have that grief and we don't want to have those losses. So I'll stay connected in spite of all the attacking. Mm-hmm. Thirdly, then you have the whole biblical, honor your father and your mother, which means you should never go no contact or never leave your family. Well, there's also some other verses too that say, leave your father and your mother to follow me. So which biblical verse you're going to go by here? Because it's more complicated than that. Yeah. And people will just take a simple look theologically at that. But they'll feel, I got to honor my father and mother. So that means I got to take whatever they dish out. Right. And so they won't leave for that reasons, the fear of loss. And also you've got societal norms too. Oh, you don't see your family anymore? Oh, what's wrong with you? They don't say, oh, your family must be toxic. They go, well, I wonder are you crazy? Is there something wrong with you? Well, I don't want people questioning me about that. Mm-hmm. Aren't you going to go be with your family this Thanksgiving? Well, no, we don't have a very positive relationship. And there are ways you can answer appropriately. But then they're going to, oh, something's wrong with this family and with this person. Right. So you have societal judgment that you'll want to stay in and stay connected. And then you also have the fantasies. one day my family will be the family I've always wanted. If I just wait long enough, if I'm a better person, if I go to all the family gatherings, if I try to assuage my mother, assuage my father, then they'll love me and we'll all be one big happy family.
Right.
And it's the fantasy
Right.
that well, I'm sure they love me, so I just need to do things differently, and then it'll come through. And so we'll have the fantasies that will keep us connected to that too.
Yeah.
So those are some of the reasons why it's hard to walk away. And
Mhm.
I have a lot of people say, oh, well, just tell them to walk away. And I'm going, wait, you don't understand how difficult that is to do. That's not easy to do. When, well, I just walk away. Well, you just walk away because it's not your family.
Exactly.
You're more objective. Let's talk about you just walking away from your family. See how you feel about that.
Right.
It brings up a lot of issues. So there's a lot of self-differentiation and self-growth that's needed for us to be able to have those boundaries and go either low contact or no contact, or it takes some maturing and learning to do that. And that's what I help people to do.
Yeah. So let's dive into that, right? You mentioned self-differentiation. And so if someone is in an experience where they're in a family that attacks, like what steps can people take if they're in that scenario?
And I think one of the steps is that first we have to come out of denial. Being attacked by the family, and many times I will tell people, well, and it's amazing how many times I've asked people, because they're telling me all these horrible stories, and I could give lots of examples of bad stories, and I'll say, well, in this one instance, I think, do you think your dad loves you? They had never thought about that. Well, I assumed he did, but everything they're telling me indicates he doesn't. It's like, and I'm the objective party. I know that too. I'm outside the family, so I can see maybe a little more clearly. And I'll say, well, do you think he really loves you? Or is this just a game or a power play with the inheritance and with, your job and the family business, or, those kind of things. And so this person starts to come out of denial. Oh, well, this really is wrong. People who love each other don't do this. Correct. I'm not saying you have to do anything right now. Let's just accept that people who love each other don't do this. And it's not just simply them being annoying, or just accepting. They start to begin to not accept the attacking anymore. And they're not just annoying. And I hear all the statements, well, that's just the way my family is. Yeah, but I don't think you really accept your family as they really are. You are minimizing what your family's doing. That's different than accepting this is the way they are. You're minimizing it, and we don't want to minimize. Now you can make choices after that. So that's kind of step one, come out of denial.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I love that about, right, people who love each other don't do this. That's such a profound thing, because
it's a right. We don't think about that. We just assume
right,
everybody in the family loves everybody.
right.
They're just difficult to get along with. They're just kind of selfish at times. And I'm going, but let's take a look at all you've shared with me.
Exactly.
That isn't how I define love.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, many times we have to look at how we're emotionally or financially dependent on the family and deal with those things too, because maybe the family has worked it around where we are more financially or emotionally dependent on them. So we want to understand our functioning, and work on completing our unfinished business and issues which are at work inside us that keep us connected, over connected. And so we have to deal with those issues, our fantasies, what we hope for. Well, they'll come around. Everybody needs your mother's love when you're 50. I mean, I'm not saying your mother can't love you. It's nice to have your mother love you. I'm for that. I really am. But you're telling me it's a need. And I'm going, you're 50 years old. I don't know that you need a parental love right now. It'd be nice if they would. And some mothers and fathers love their kids, even into adulthood, which is fabulous, but not all.
Right.
And then I talk about once you become more aware of what's going on and you begin to become a little more intolerant to the abuse or toxicity or pain and the attacking, that, hey, I need to set some boundaries. Families who can tolerate this, and families are all on the continuum, so they're all kinds of families who can handle things down here, and some are way up here and can't handle anything. So I realize all families are different. Families who could handle it, I like for someone to begin to state their new awareness or their pain. Hey, I've been unhappy with being criticized so often. I'm unhappy with that. And I just want to let you know. Dad, when you give me a compliment, you always give me a backhanded insult. And I just heard a story recently where, someone had just purchased a car, and it was a nice car, which he could afford. No problem. It's definitely a nice car. Meets with mom. Mom says, "Oh, your car is so glamorous, but you're not. And you're kind of normal and kind of not so glamorous." Well, is that a compliment or a put down? Both.
Okay.
It's both. And so then when you say, well, that was rather hurtful or rude, all I was doing was complimenting your car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what about the other part where I'm just normal and not very glamorous, and I'm 39 years old. Why am I all of a sudden unglamorous? And why does it matter? And why would you say that when you're trying to make a compliment? You don't do it. That's like saying, Jerry, you are really a handsome guy. But you are fat. Well, which is it? What's the point of this? And so getting those double messages is always very difficult. So stating I'm unhappy with what I'm unhappy with. I'm unhappy with how you criticize me so often. I don't like the questions about my personal life. I'll share with you things about me on my timetable. When I come over, I don't want to hear about XXX. I have been unhappy about this for a long time. I don't want to hear about my sister, my looks, my career, my relationships, etc. I just don't want to do that. So I'm giving you notice. I'm putting you on notice. I don't like this. Now, some families won't accept that. You might as well not even do it, because they're only going to use that to attack you more. Well, you don't need attacked more. So we then just need to behave, not give notice. We just need to make choices and not give notice. I don't always have to give notice. I give notice to people that I think might be somewhat changeable or malleable. But if they're rigid, narcissistic, then you can give all the notice in the world and it's not going to make a difference. You just begin to see them less, say my preference, I don't want to come, those kind of, to these family gatherings or whatever. We need to pay attention to our personal true feelings, to learn about systems feelings. And I have a video on those feelings. We want to learn about our own feelings, because often when families attack, there's a lot of suppression of our feelings. Because like me going, well, man, that would really hurt. Does it hurt you? Oh, well, let me think about that. Yeah, I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
But they hadn't thought that was hurtful.
Right.
Because this is just the way things are. So there's no sense feeling hurt. And so they're not aware of their true feelings. Take your power back. Saying no, setting boundaries, enforcing boundaries, exploring no contact if necessary. You can even learn to say, please stop. You must stop. Stop or I will leave. I mean, we can learn to ratchet the resistance up in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to become a mirror, not a sponge. I can mirror back what they're saying. You have been criticizing me a lot every time I'm with you. A sponge is when they criticize me, I just take it all in.
Right.
So I want to be a mirror, not a sponge. Those are some steps that I work with people on attacking families.
Yeah, I especially love that you brought awareness to, right, some families you can say certain things to and set, right, these boundaries. And then some families you can't, but you need to, right, take different behaviors or do what you need to do to keep yourself safe and happy, and just recognizing that not all families are going to accept that. So.
And do it without explanation.
Gotcha.
Because I had one client, she'd say, well, I want you to come to my birthday party. This is a mom and dad's going to be there. And they're very critical, very just not, I don't know who they love or what they love. And the son said, it's a 2-hour drive. I just prefer not to. And then they go, well, why? What? I want to know your reasons. And why do people ask why? When I say, well, my preference is I just think I'll stay here and I won't come for the birthday lunch. Why do people say why? If they happen to be attacking families, they need more information. They want to change your mind. They want to hear your reasons so they can even discount those and criticize those. So I'm not going to give them that supply. I'm not going to give them, because that's my preference. I just choose to not come. Well, why are you not communicating with me? I'm communicating very well. I'm telling you, I choose not to come. What more? Well, you're not telling me all your reasons. I'm not 6 years old. I don't have to tell you all my reasons. Maybe I have, athlete's foot and I don't want to walk that far.
Right.
I don't have to tell you why. I really don't. We never have to answer any questions if we don't want to.
Yeah.
That's not a rule.
Yeah.
Unless the judge asks me. If a judge asks me, I got to answer.
Right.
If a policeman asks me, I got to answer. But other than that, I don't have to answer questions. I don't. And I'm not being mean or difficult.
Right. Yeah. So interesting. Yeah. It's interesting to start questioning, right, what kind of things we think are true but aren't, right? That I must answer all these questions, or I must answer if someone asks me, or I'm obligated to always be connected to my family because I was born into it, right? Is it true?
I have their last name.
Right. Yeah.
But they may not be a nice family.
Yeah.
And you're right. I'm not obligated to answer those things. And you may get even more bullying or more defining. And I have a video on stop letting others define you. And they will define you by saying, oh, well, you're just being oversensitive. Oh, well, you're just being this, or they're just defining you, which is also an attack. That's also an attack if you're defining me and judging me.
Right.
I prefer to not come. We are adults and I can prefer that for any reason I want, because I like chocolate ice cream over vanilla. It can.
Right.
I just choose. Well, I'm your mother. I'm fully aware that you're my mother. I'm fully aware you're my father. That has not been lost on me.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
And in fact, there are times I'm not sure I wish that were the case.
Yes.
But that's a little reactive and a little immature.
Yeah.
But I can be immature too at times.
Can't we all?
We all can be. We all can be. I'm trying to be more mature. It doesn't mean I will eliminate all immaturity. I'm trying to be more mature.
Right. Absolutely.
Work in progress. Work in progress.
Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing those steps, Jerry. And I'd love it, since we're running low on time, for you to share a little bit about your free gift. And then I'll ask you for some final insights. So what is that?
If you contact me on my website, send me a message, say you're coming from Avea, so that I have that, know that, and just say Avea, and that will tell me. I will send you a link to a free workshop and an additional video as well that you can have. That's kind of an exclusive video. The link, I think, we'll have on there that you can use that link to contact me. You can also go online if you find me or whatever and just write to me and say Avea, so we know it's but
Mhm.
that contact link would get it there, and I can get you that free information. If people have really appreciated that too
Awesome.
in
Thank
past.
you. Thank you, Jerry. And everyone watching, the button to that is below that links over to Jerry's contact form. And then you put that information in. We'll have some instructions there so you can just copy and paste it so Jerry knows where you're coming from. And do you want to share any last insights? I think you had a quote that you wanted to share.
There were a couple I thought they're very brief. When families attack, this is not us cutting off from them. This is them leaving us. Because so many feel guilty about leaving their family or distancing from their family. When I'm distancing from someone, it's not because it's my choice. I mean, it is my choice, but it's because of things that have been happening with the other person or the family. That's why I feel the necessity to do that. And then lastly, you can live without your family. It's hard to live without peace of mind.
Mm. Mm. Awesome. I love it. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Ann.
Thank you. I really appreciate you doing this again, Jerry, and such a great topic. So thanks for talking with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a joy.
As always. And thank you, Avaya students watching or listening right now, for showing up for yourself and being willing to go on this journey and talk about these topics. And we will see you all again very soon. Take care. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this latest class with Jerry Wise. He talked with us today about when families attack. I really enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed that he specifically honed in on family dynamics, right? What's happening with your family members, those that you were raised by, people you are genetically related to, all of those kinds of relationships. And one thing that I wanted to touch on was what we were talking about around obligation. Right. It's interesting that I think so many of us, and it's a very societal thing that, okay, so we were born into a family. So I tell myself I'm obligated to go to that dinner, or I'm obligated to do this thing, or I'm obligated to what have you, financially support someone, and on and on and on. And just starting to question, well, is that actually true? And right, just questioning in any dynamic, any kind of relationship you're in, am I doing this thing out of obligation, or am I doing this thing out of inspiration? Like I really truly want to, or I feel inspired to, as opposed to I have to because I'm related to you, or I have to because of some other obligation. So just things to think about in all of your relationships. Are you operating from a place of obligation or a place of inspiration? So little food for thought. And I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you all again very soon. Take care.
The connection between being scapegoated and people pleasing isn't obvious from the outside. People pleasers are usually described as too agreeable, too accommodating, too afraid of conflict. What that description misses is where it came from. If you were the scapegoat in your family, your people pleasing didn't come from a personality flaw. It came from a very specific type of training. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what that training was. I'm Jerry Wise, and for over 45 years, I've helped hundreds of thousands of people heal and get their family out of them by practicing self-differentiation. The process of becoming your true self and releasing the false self you were trained to be in your family of origin, so that you can finally experience clarity, peace, and lasting freedom. Number one, as the scapegoat, you were punished for being real. There was a version of you that was too much, too emotional, too truthful, too aware, too disapproving of the dysfunctional side of the family. The real you created a problem in the family. The scapegoat role required a version of you that the family could point to as the issue, and the real you kept getting in the way of that. Every time you showed up as yourself or showed how you really felt or saw reality as it really was, you got punished. So you started editing your real self. So you learned to be whatever the room or the system needed, what people wanted to see. The real you stayed back while a more manageable version went out to meet people. People pleasing, at its core, is just that, the habit of sending a version of yourself you calculated would be accepted, because the real version of you will not be accepted or will probably get you into trouble. Number 2, as the scapegoat, you learned that agreement was the fastest way to stop being the target. When conflict landed on you in the family, it stayed. Disagreeing didn't lead to a resolution. It led to more conflict, more blame, more isolation. You figured out that agreeing made things stop. You agreed not because you meant it, but because it worked. Agreement was a functional tool for making yourself less of a target, and you started using it. Actually, agreement can be a powerful tool to control others, and it really can. Codependent No More, the book by Melody Beatty, Codependent No More, How to Stop Controlling Others and Start Caring for Yourself. For the scapegoat, being agreeable was a way to survive in a dysfunctional, blaming family. And agreeableness was a way to get the spotlight off of you. And today, you still do it. We carried this behavior and pattern into adulthood. When someone says something you don't agree with, the disagreement is there, but what comes out of your mouth is something softer or nothing, or oh yeah, you're probably right. You've learned to hold your actual position privately and perform something more acceptable publicly. I'm not saying that's always bad, but if it tends to be the norm, then it's a problem. Certainly, I don't share my genuine, real feelings with everybody I come across in every situation at all times. We don't do that, and I don't think that's appropriate. But if you're people pleasing and managing what you share about how you really feel 99% of the time and withholding that, then that can be a real problem for your own sense of self and how others impact you and how you deal with that system, that relationship system. The people around you think they know what you think, but many times they don't know what you think. Number 3, as the scapegoat, your needs were treated as a problem. When you had needs in the family, they were inconvenient or evidence of something wrong with you. You were too sensitive, too demanding, too needy. The message, whether it was said directly or just lived out around you, was that needing things created problems. So you started doing the math. What does wanting something cost? And you decided that the cost was too high. And often now you decide the cost is still too high. Now you act like you don't have any needs. You deflect when someone asks what you want. You say you don't mind. When you do have a preference or needs, you arrange your life around other people's needs with a fluency that looks generous from the outside, but is self-denying on the inside. I think of an example in which there were some folks that I knew and they had a son, and both the parents knew they had not been great parents. They were good parents, but they were not great parents for their kids growing up. And one of their sons, they felt, he is just not in touch with his inner, he just wants to avoid his inner emotions and doesn't want to be known. And that's a real concern for them now that he's just launching into his own college or career and that sort of thing. And so he was going to a dance, and I think maybe a fraternity dance or something that was hosted. He had a girl that was going to go with him, and so they were happy about that. That's great that you have someone to go and enjoy themselves. He goes, the girl doesn't go. And mom then asked him, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Does that bother you that she didn't go? And he basically said, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. And no, it was fine. Everything was great. And again, the people-pleasing part, in other words, stay away from my inner life. There's nothing I can do about it now. Mom didn't ask, is there something more you can do about it now? She wasn't asking that. She was just asking how you felt, because as mom, she might feel, oh, that's kind of crummy that I was expecting to go with her, and then she's not. And I might feel some feelings about that. Not a big important thing, but he was staying away from anything that would prompt being known, causing a problem, have to talk more about a situation, and that can occur as well. Number 4, as the scapegoat, you were blamed before you could speak. In some families, the scapegoat is blamed before the conversation even starts. The verdict arrives before the evidence. You walked in already guilty and convicted, or convicted and guilty. I don't know. Maybe it was the look on their face when they saw it was you. Maybe it was how quickly your explanation became irrelevant. Or you experienced family mobbing, which is bullying by group. You learned that your version of events didn't really matter because the outcome was already decided. Now you apologize before anyone accuses you. You get out in front of it. The apology comes out of a reflex before you've even had time to think about whether you actually did something wrong or didn't. You over-explain. You provide more context than the situation needs. You anticipate blame and try to neutralize it before it lands. You're doing it because your nervous system learned early that you were going to be found guilty anyway, and we are still now trying to get ahead of it. Often when we feel an urgency to try to get ahead of it, or ahead of the gossip, or ahead of the blame, or ahead of the accusation, we are often already put in our place. Because if we're in that position, and I call that an emotional location, if we're in that emotional location where we're trying to get out ahead of things, not that there aren't times it might be good to get out ahead of things, we are often already in not a great place. Defending, arguing, pushing back are often not effective means of getting out of the scapegoat role. I was a part of an organization where I did feel like I was being scapegoated. And what's interesting is the more you plead your case, in some ways, you're also communicating maybe the more guilty I am. And that's how people receive it in emotional systems. This requires another type of finesse and changing the direction of the relationship's use of the two forces that are always at work in relationships: togetherness and separateness. There's always togetherness. There's always a pull towards separateness, always a pull towards togetherness. In every relationship, you cannot avoid that. And that if we acknowledge that, and for example, if we argue, defend, react, complain, blame, we're actually not creating distance or healthy separateness. We are actually intensifying the enmeshment or togetherness force in the relationship. The more I hate you and communicate I hate you and say that on Facebook and send you texts that are, mean, the more I do that, the more I'm pushing us together. It is a too much of a togetherness thing happening. And if they win by me staying in this too much togetherness role, if they win, they can control my inner emotional thinking and feeling process. Let me give you another example. If I can get you to hate me or be angry with me or upset with me, then I set up a relationship in which you then are pursuing me through your anger, blaming, hate, and narcissists want you to pursue them either with admiration or dislike or upsetness. Either brings you into their orbit. And that's why neutrality is so important. That it's not too much togetherness and it's not too much separateness that resolve the conflict within us. It's the third option of neutrality. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And I learned that when I was in this organization, and I learned that to be able to be more neutral. And I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to. And it lessens the impact of the people who are causing trouble for me or for others. This may sound complicated or even confusing. And I understand that in the Road to Self program, I do try to describe that. I describe this and talk about this to help you use the dynamics of relationships and human relationships to keep you out of others' emotional clutches. As I teach in my Road to Self program, the work of changing this role is not to get it out of the family. How can I make the family not see me as the scapegoat? you're going to waste lots of years trying to do that. But to get it out of you, and this is done through the work of self-differentiation. The scapegoat role can be a form of emotional, mental, and even physical abuse. While being the scapegoat in a family is very real and is often a mobbing dynamic, and that's what scapegoating is. It's this group of the family scapegoating you. It's that mobbing kind of relationships. We, as the narcissistic family, unconsciously all agree, and this is the mobbing part. We, as the narcissistic family, unconsciously all agree that to keep the blame or responsibility away from us, we choose Mary to scapegoat. This shift of responsibility relieves our inner stress, and keeps the spotlight away from us. We will sacrifice Mary to keep the emotional balance of the family so we do not have to change or become more healthy or become more insightful or become more responsible. And I might mention, people sometimes get confused when I say narcissistic family. I'll repeat that again about that concept. The concept does not mean everybody in the family is a narcissist. No different than, say, an alcoholic family. Not everybody in the family is an alcoholic, but everyone organizes themselves emotionally, mentally, behaviorally around the alcoholic. And so it becomes an alcoholic family. But it doesn't mean everybody has the addiction of alcoholism. Same with a narcissist, a narcissistic family. You have a narcissistic family if they are pulling the strings and calling the shots, and everybody's organizing around them, even if they're not narcissists. As the scapegoat, you were the one nobody checked on. There were people in the family who got attention, care, concern. When something went wrong for them, the family noticed and may have responded. When something went wrong for you, it was either ignored or treated as further evidence of your role, scapegoat. You learned to manage on your own because nobody was coming. The cavalry was not coming for you. Now you make sure nobody else feels that way. You check on people, you notice when someone goes quiet, and you look like warmth, and sometimes it can look like things are warm or caring, but underneath it, you still are the child who needed someone to notice and that they didn't. You're giving what you didn't receive, and that impulse is driving a significant portion of your people pleasing today. Because if our need for being seen, being cared about, loved, we might then go overboard to do that to everyone else in the hope of getting it or earning it or hustling for it. And again, I like Brene Brown's concept of hustling for love or hustling for self-esteem, hustling for acceptance. Something to remember. What you are good at or good at giving is many times what you lacked growing up. I'll let that sit. You can think about that. You can agree or disagree, but that might be a possible open door for you. Number 6, as the scapegoat, your place in that family was always conditional. You didn't have a secure position in the family. There was no unconditional belonging. Your place depended on your behavior, your role, your compliance, your words, how you expressed yourself, when you expressed yourself, how often you expressed yourself. When you stepped out of it, you felt the withdrawal. You were never quite sure where you stood, which meant you were always monitoring and always adjusting. You're still trying to earn it everywhere you go, in friendships, at work, in relationships. There's a low level of anxiety that lives just under the surface. Are they still okay with me? Did I do something wrong? What do they need from me right now? I do work with a lot of people pleasers or codependents, people pleasers, or people who they've just had to abandon their self to get acceptance or love or caring from other people. And I oftentimes will say, because that's your bent, because that's the way you tend to be, it's probably no risk to try to be someone who's not that. I would like you to go and be more disagreeable. And they go, well, I can't do that. Then people won't like me. No. We can go into all of that. And the issue is you're way overboard. Here's being selfish. Here's being people pleasing. If you choose to do some disagreeableness, why don't you be a problem causer? Why don't you, in an innocent and not bad way, it can move you more towards the inner and the middle part of being healthy by pushing the symptom, we might say. Then, go to work and cause some trouble. Not enough that it hurts anybody horribly or causes a financial disaster. But there's nothing wrong with being, what happens if you're such a people pleaser, then if sometimes you go, well, I'm not sure I would do that, everybody is aghast. Oh my gosh, they thought, oh, Jerry's got some disagreement with this. He never has disagreement. The reason why it's so technicolor and why it gets such big attention is because I'm out of balance over here. I want to be able to disagree or cause a problem in a positive way. And people don't go, oh my gosh, that's so unlike Jerry, because then people will see you as more human. And also I think it adds to trust and things like that. Not necessarily with the narcissistic parent. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in our own recovery process. The people pleaser comes out because you never fully believed your place is secure. And the strategies you built to earn your position in that family are still running. Number 7, as the scapegoat, you were only safe when you were useful. Safety in that family had a price. It wasn't unconditional. You discovered that when you were needed, when you were performing a function, when you were helping or making someone's life easier, or managing their emotions or thoughts, you were less of a target. Being useful provided a kind of cover. It made you less visible to whatever was coming next, which was the closest thing to safety you could get. It is very confusing and difficult for a child to learn safety is earned, or safety is something that comes and goes. This foundational need was never really secure. Here we find the beginning of trust issues, confidence issues, and self-esteem issues. As a result, usefulness became the currency. You help before you're asked. You offer before the need is stated. You make yourself indispensable in relationships, at work, and in every room you enter, because somewhere underneath, your nervous system learned that the cost of not being useful is exposure. In your case, the people-pleasing runs deeper than waiting to make others happy or wanting to make others happy. It runs all the way back to the equation, useful equals safer. And certainly not being is safe. Number 8, as the scapegoat, you were never allowed to have a reaction. Emotional reactions in your family had consequences. If you were upset, you were seen as being dramatic. If you were angry, it was proof that you were problematic and dysregulated. And of course, the only one who was identified as dysregulated was the scapegoat. If you cried, it was manipulation. The scapegoat role required you to absorb things without visibly reacting, because any visible reaction could be turned against you. You learn to manage your face, your voice, your responses. We still may be managing those things today. You smile at things that hurt. You try to act calm in situations where you really don't feel calmness is appropriate at this point. You let things go publicly while carrying them privately. The pleasantness you project to the people around you isn't always how you actually feel. It's a practiced surface experience. And underneath it, there are reactions you've been suppressing for so long, you've stopped noticing that they're even there. If you're ready to finally break free and start living with clarity, peace, and a grounded connection to your true self, then join the Road to Self program. Many who have joined say it was the missing piece in their healing journey, the step that finally helped them get their family out of them and stand strong as their true self. If you're not sure the Road to Self program is for you right now, then start with my free 84-minute self-differentiation training. Over 50,000 people have joined the free training as their first step. Click the links in the description to get started. Please don't forget to subscribe. Also comment on this video. I read the comments. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and be wise.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach. I've been helping people for 40 plus years. I have a guest joining me, Yitz Goldberg. He also works with Jerry Wise Relationship Systems, and he is a coach as well as a social worker. And he joins me today on the beginning of this series that we're doing on the principles of self-differentiation. I hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please click join to become a paid member. It's only $1.99 every month. And that really helps us do these free videos for you. And then I have a workshop coming up December 5th, 2020 on Saturday from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. Please go to the website, look under events, and you can join me for that workshop on reducing your reactivity. Hey, hello, Yitz. Good to be with you
Jerry.
again.
Yep, I'm excited for the series.
We've got a number of principles we're going to be going through, and we're trying to get those covered because I think they can be helpful in some shorter videos that we do for you to bring you each of these principles. And today we're talking about a principle of self-differentiation, in which differentiation is the capacity to take a stand in an intense emotional system.
Yeah.
So, and again, what we've been borrowing from Edwin Friedman's book, The Failure of Nerve, which is a great book I would recommend to anyone. And he talks about differentiation as an emotional change, not just a behavioral change, and one in which we are able to live in a certain state of differentiation. Rather than a particular act of differentiation, it's getting ourselves to where we are in a state of greater self-differentiation. And the first principle talks about our ability to take a stand in an intense emotional system. But I think you can have an increased ability in self-differentiation, even to learn to do it in a lesser intense emotional system, because we can take our baby steps and begin to practice taking a stand in even lower anxiety systems and work our way up to more intense relationship systems.
Yeah, that would be good practice. Even though usually our differentiation is challenged when the system is intense, like when the emotional system is intense, that's usually when our differentiation is most challenged.
Correct.
So, yeah, to me, I think this whole idea of taking a stand in an intense emotional system is usually what I deal with, for example, with clients who say my father is a narcissist, or my family is dysfunctional, or my workplace is like this. And they always describe the system around them as being very intense, very unhealthy, very immature, as if
high
that
anxiety.
allowed them, as if that allowed them until now to be undifferentiated, right? To continue to being immature. And
good point.
Yeah, and they could do that, meaning if that's what they want, how they want to live their life, they could do that. But at the end of the day, we are challenged.
They would be asking, well, how can I possibly differentiate given all of this drama and chaos?
Right.
Is their cutting edge, right, where they're at the cutting edge of change.
But that is where you are supposed to differentiate. Those are the places that you are going to be challenged. And actually, those are the places that with the right work you're able to really differentiate on a much deeper level, not only just because the surroundings are kind of okay and they're not challenging you.
Well, and I think of it as the whole fear, overcoming a fear issue. We'll be ready to do it when my fear goes away, versus are you ready to do it and go through the fear, and not wait for it to go away. We're always wanting the circumstances and situations to be amenable and to be how we'd like them to be. Well, I would differentiate from my mom if she was just more understanding. Well, no, differentiation is differentiation regardless of her understanding or not understanding.
Yeah.
That's it's not dependent on them. And in fact, if we are wise, we then, and that'll be another principle we're talking about, is what happens when we do differentiate in a highly charged or an intense emotional system. Usually it won't be welcomed with calmness and, affirmation. And if you know that going in, you're able to fortify yourself more and staying calm with not needing that approval, not needing that acceptance.
Yeah.
Now, I
To
interrupted
me,
you.
no, I was saying that to me, taking a stand in an intense emotional system, it means that I'm not trying to change the system, nor am I trying to change myself for the system. And throughout this time, I stay myself despite the system trying to change me and despite the system not changing. Right? So this is the process of differentiation, allowing the system or the people to continue being who they are or doing what they are doing, but you're the one differentiating. You're the one taking the steps outside, or more you, more of a self, right? Creating more of an I, right?
Right.
You're not leaving the system to rebel. You're leaving the system because it's right for you, or you're doing things that are different than what is expected from the system because it's right for you, not out of resentment or trying to get back at the system. Right? That would just be being reactive.
Cutoff. That would be a cutoff, which is what we often do, thinking we're changing. Well, I'll just cut off from them, and then I'll be different. And by the way, cutoff and going no contact are two different things. Cutoff is an immature avoidance. No contact is a mature intentional choice, or low contact is a mature intentional choice, and not based on my immaturity. It's based on my maturity. And so I like to make those distinctions, because a lot of people will think a cutoff is being mature. No.
Yeah.
That's you can't handle the heat in the kitchen, so you get out of the kitchen. Rather than taking in a bucket of cold water with ice in it to take care of yourself in a hot kitchen. That's I can take care of myself, and maybe I can even step into the dining room to get out of the hot kitchen, but I'm still talking to the people who are in the kitchen. And so I have connectedness while being myself, my real self. And I realize, and then there's a whole continuum of problems, from severe narcissists and malignant narcissists to abuse situations to, just good old neurotic families and dysfunctional families. And so one shoe doesn't fit all people, but this work of differentiation is something everyone can do, and is important for us to do to grow up and to be mature.
Right. Because for one person, staying in contact with an intense system could be the right thing, if that's what they're interested in doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for another, really going no contact out of a mature kind of state, that would be the right thing for them to do. Jerry, I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend to someone who's in an emotional intense system right now, in a system that's very charged up, a lot of anxiety going on, also from the person himself or herself, and from the family or the system? What would you recommend for them? What would you tell them to do that will allow them to kind of see themselves, right? To stay calm inside the system, and yet know what they need to do, like what their next steps are.
And of course, that's a big question because there's a lot connected to that. But I think I would talk to people about, and talk to clients about false beliefs, how much we have, or, well, let me talk about enmeshment first. I might talk about enmeshment. How enmeshed are we? Meaning, how much do I need their approval? How much do I need their acceptance? How much do I need to borrow self from them? And if I don't get it, then all is lost, and it's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Because that's going to keep us more reactive and learning to get to the place where we're saying, so what that they reject me? So what? It won't make my pants fall down, is what I use in a silly, trying to be silly or playful, because I want to think about, well, what really would happen if they reject me? Most of the time, we're fearing something that's already happening, but we're fearing it's going to happen. It's already happening, and you're still alive. I mean, you're still, when we say, well, what if my parents reject me? They probably already are. I mean, and you're still hanging in there. And so the catastrophe often does not exist, but we have fear of that. To bring our fears down, working on that enmeshment, and learning to heal some of the wounds and hurt so I can get greater detachment. In other words, if I was wounded or as a child, emotionally or self-esteem wise, then I'll keep going back to try to get something from them that they can't give. And then I'm going to stay in the emotional drama and the highly charged nature of it until I get it.
Right.
Well, I try to talk about the illogicalness of that. Not to shame anyone, that's what we've learned to do. But the point is to help them with the realities of, your parents can't do that anymore. That you don't need your parents and I'm just using parents for an example. It could be your ex, it could be your children, it could be your boss, you don't need them anymore to be emotionally sound. And if you're looking for them to be that, then you're barking up the wrong tree. You don't need them. It's not necessary. It's bad news, but it's good news. The bad news is, oh, you mean my parents are never going to accept me and love me like I've always wanted? That's bad news. But do you know what? It's good news, because your parents can't do that anyway. And I was just talking to some clients, and they were talking about how they were wounded by their parents growing up. Their parents later in life apologized and were remorseful for what they had done. Amazingly, it doesn't heal the wounds. Now, do I think parents should apologize? Absolutely. And I'm glad they were. I think that's a wonderful gift. But if someone else causes me a wound, it's now my responsibility to heal the wound. So that's It's my wound. It's not theirs. They can't fix that. And if they can come to that understanding, then we end up having more power and more sense of empowerment, where now I can state, I can take a stand, because I'm not dependent on what everyone else has got to give me. I don't know if that
No, that was a
is
good
helpful, but
answer. Yeah, for sure. That was a good answer. And I think I could even answer myself that I think when someone is in such a in a relationship that's intense and very, I don't know, dramatic, a lot of anxiety, then the first thing is awareness of it, and being aware when it becomes intense, in what ways it might be intense. and and I think that part of that awareness is understanding that if you are still in that system, that means parts of you are still interested in being in that system.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's
And needing
not
that system, and
needing,
needing that.
exactly. Yeah, and that's an uncomfortable truth, right? To be able to see that, to be able to feel that, to know that this intensity is driving you crazy, but yet you're still here. So I think the next step after that awareness would be accepting that reality, understanding that
Right.
that's the system,
Right.
this is you at this moment. And something that helped me in the past, this is something very practical, is what would I do differently if I bring down my tolerance for this intensity?
Exactly.
And
Right.
and very often that shows me the way, right? It would show me what behaviors, what behavioral changes I need to make to
Right.
take
What would
myself
I
out
do
of that
differently?
intensity.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and those are excellent points. And I wanted to share, we just have a few minutes left. I wanted to share, and I don't want to, if you have more to share, yes, you certainly can. But I think of the gradation of beginning to take a stand in a situation. And take a stand does not mean we have no compromise, or we don't negotiate, but taking a stand is not negotiable. In other words, as simple as, hey, your husband says, I want to go out and eat Mexican, but you'd really like to eat Chinese or Asian food tonight. You can take a stand and say, well, I really would enjoy and would like to eat Asian food tonight. I'm feeling that Chinese food. And now you may compromise and go, no, but we can go eat Mexican. But I'm taking a stand as to what I really want. But it doesn't mean I can't. Where the problem comes in is when we haven't, where our self and our preferences are negotiable. And that's where they go, well, where do you want to go eat tonight? I don't know. I'll go wherever you want to eat. Now I'm not taking any stand. There is no self in there. You can take a stand and negotiate. But even if I go to the Mexican restaurant with my husband, let's say, or my partner, and we go to a Mexican restaurant, it doesn't change the fact I wanted to go to an Asian restaurant. That's what I preferred. And I took a stand on that. But I don't need to end the marriage because we're not going to an Asian restaurant tonight. So that's a low level taking a stand. Then I remember, and I think you've maybe seen in some of my videos, where the family prayer, where I was a pastor at the time, I didn't want to continue doing the family prayer at all of our family gatherings. I didn't want to be the anointed or person that I've got to do the prayer every time we're together. And I didn't want to do that. But I knew saying no, there would be some anxiety or awkwardness, because my mom was determined that I should do that. So that's another layer of discomfort. Then I remember when I was a pastor and with a council of bishops, in which I was a bishop, and I was telling them how I thought we were not serving those who were who had depression and mental illnesses and such, and that we needed to use professionals outside the church because we couldn't provide those services, and how much that was heretical to my church, and how I knew they would not be happy with that at all, with my view. And there, the anxiety was much higher, and it had to do with my career and my job and what all my other colleagues think about me and support and all kinds of stuff. Well, the anxiety goes up, and can we take a stand in those situations? And so I think we build ourselves to where we can take a stand in intense emotional
I will add on that, and then we could end the video, unless obviously you have anything to add on that. That very often in the beginning when we start, or maybe not even in the beginning, right? Always when we meet a new level of challenging ourselves or taking a stand, then very often the taking a stand could come out a bit more aggressive or less flexible than it would with someone who's built that flexibility and who knows that going to a Chinese restaurant, even though that's not my first priority, is okay, but someone else, that might be their way to take a stand. And that's okay. Like, that's part of the process. That's part of the journey of playing around of what feels comfortable for you to be flexible with and what is non-negotiable at all.
And when we begin to do the work of self-differentiation and taking a stand, it's no different than when we start being a teenager and start being an adolescent. And we're going to make mistakes. We're going to not say it right. But we're going to practice at getting better at that and getting better at knowing ourselves, to where we end up hopefully becoming calm, thoughtful, emotionally aware adults. And that's our goal that we're heading towards, to where we can take a stand while staying connected to the system. But that takes going through an adolescence where you're going to overdo it, underdo it. You're going to say, well, I didn't state that clear enough.
Yeah.
Oh, I stated that way too clear. I made it a declaration of independence, and yeah, we start, whenever you try something new, you can overdo it or underdo it. And then you keep learning, and it starts becoming truly you. And then you get better at knowing how to state in a calm way you're taking a stand on emotional issues, and able to do that calmly.
Yeah.
And then we raise less anxiety in the system, and we also feel more confident and secure in ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've come to the end of our time, and
Yeah.
we've spent 20 minutes or so talking about this first principle. We've got about 8 or 9 principles left to go that we're going to be doing videos on. You can work with YITS. You can book online at jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com to work with YITS as a life and relationship coach. And in the area of self-differentiation too, you can work with me. You can contact me using the contact information below. Don't forget about the workshop on December 5th, 2020. And also, please join and subscribe to this channel. Click the bell to get all the new videos, and click join to join as a paid member so we can continue bringing these videos to you. Anything you want to share, Yitz, before we go?
No, nothing else. Join the workshop. That I definitely want to recommend and share. Reducing our reactivity.
Right.
Yeah.
And that will help. I think that's another one of those principles, of reducing that reactivity and focusing on that. I want to thank you all for joining us today and listening to us. I hope you have a great day, and be wise.
Bye, everyone. See you in the next principle.
Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a relationship expert and the director of the Center for Self-Differentiation in Carmel, Indiana, on the north side of Indianapolis. And this video is entitled Breaking the Family Trance. All of us grow up in families in which we are, so to speak, hypnotically induced into a hypnotic state in which we come to accept the paradigm of our families as the norm, and those are paradigms that we adopt. For some families, those paradigms are not as toxic. For other families, those paradigms and that trance that we are placed in that started at childhood continue on into adulthood and are quite toxic and quite unhealthy. Let me read a quote to you that I found, which I really enjoy. Family trance is a word used by family systems therapists and family systems theorists, and this one is a good one. It says, the deepest trance you'll ever be in is in your family trance, says Jane Parsons Fine. When you think you're changed, whether thanks to therapy, support groups, workshops, or simply increased self-knowledge, just go home for the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays and experience those old emotional buttons. And I see a whole herd of planes going by that are all kind of antique. I apologize. When you think you're changed, whether thanks to therapy, support groups, workshop, or simply increase in knowledge, just go home for the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays and experience those old emotional buttons being pressed by family members. You are back in trance, which started the moment you were born. And I really think there's a lot of truth to that, and that's an experience that people have. And and a lot of folks experience that trance. I also realize that when I work with folks, I find that when they begin to break that trance, they really begin to see the world differently. They begin to see themselves differently. Smells are different. Visions are different. They see their family different. They see their own lives differently. It really is an awakening when you break that family trance, because that trance goes with you wherever you go. It's not something we notice because it's trance-like, and it's not something we are as aware of. But once it's broken, you really do see how, wow, I was really in a trance with my family of origin. And I think even hypnosis is considered nothing but the manifestation of an emotional state of increased intensity. And I think that state of increased intensity is a part of what happens when we're born and go on through our childhood. For those who have toxic or dysfunctional families, that intensity is really intense and toxic and remains for a long time. By the way, that was the famous Ivan Pavlov who said that quote about hypnosis, as in Pavlov's dog and what he revealed concerning behaviorism. I think kids are highly suggestible. If we're going to use a hypnotic theme, kids are very highly suggestible because they are so dependent upon family members and parents. One thing I read recently by an author, Peter Teitelman, in his book, The Therapist's Own Family, which is an excellent book, and he talks about this, that a parent having a feeling becomes the child's reality. And that's how closely connected parents and children are. Parents' feelings become reality for children because they're not self-differentiated. They are connected to us, and thus begins the trance process. And so whatever our parents felt and felt about things, believed things, and their emotional field and emotional inner life, whatever it was like, that was reality for us. And then as we grow older, we begin to have our own reality. Well, that can be very difficult if you're still under the trance of, let's say, a dysfunctional family. Let me give you my definition of what a family trance is. It is the emotional paradigm or emotional and mental givens we learn and absorb emotionally when growing up in our own family of origin. We took in all of that emotional reality from our mother and father, from our siblings, from our family of origin. We take that in and absorb it. It becomes our reality. It becomes our norm. These givens are the glasses through which we see the world, especially relationships and self-awareness and self-image. It is through those awarenesses, through that paradigm. The family trance includes things for dysfunctional families. Certainly there are healthier trances if you grow up where there was support, self-differentiation, unconditional love, lots of nurturing. There was not a lot of emotional disturbance on the part of the parents and siblings. Then we have a different paradigm that we grow up with. For a dysfunctional paradigm, we grow up with often secrets. Secrets are very, very damaging in families. Family rules, the way you're to do things, the way you're to be, the way you're to think. Family expectations, family roles. Obsessiveness is a part of that trance. And when I think about obsessiveness, that's where we have an enmeshment problem in the family, in which mom and dad are over obsessive about the kids, or the kids are over obsessive about mom and dad, worrying about what do they think, what's going on inside them, how do they feel, what's happening. And when you do a lot of that obsession, that's a part of the family trance paradigm, that we're supposed to do that. Worry states, I think, are a part of that family trance. Are we to worry? We are to worry. How we're to worry. Fear states, guilt states, those are all a part of that family trance. The knowledge of what is normal or not normal is a part of that trance. Trauma can be a part of that trance. Emotional patterns in relationship becomes a part of that trance. The meaning of love, intimacy, success, and happiness are a part of that trance. How do you feel about love, money, sex? All of those things are a part of that paradigm that we inherit from our family of origin. And there are probably other parts of that paradigm, that trance, but I wanted to at least give you some examples of what's a part of that trance-like state. And again, these are not things that I have come to believe for myself. These are things I have absorbed, and these are things I have accepted as givens from my family of origin. And that also is not self-differentiation. Self-differentiation is when I come to accept those things as truly being normative, or I choose that. Then it becomes mine. And that's self-differentiation. Believe it or not, some of those things may parallel or be very similar with my family of origin. But until I choose them, then they are part of the trance and what's supposed to be accepted as norm. While it's possible to break your family trance, I don't believe it's an easy thing to do alone, because we're like fish swimming in a tank of water and we don't observe or see the water. The water is a given. We don't see the water. Fish don't see the water. That's just what they're in. And so it's not easy to see your water that you're in. If we get help from others, that can help us see the water that we're in. And then we begin to separate ourselves out from the water. We may decide we want a different tank, a different type of water, a different color water. I work with individuals, couples, and families every day to break the trance of those with a dysfunctional family background. I work very hard at that. I help folks to unpack that and to find a new paradigm and break the family trance, which also keeps people stuck, keeps people repeating patterns over and over again that end up in hurt or failure, finding wrong partners, repeating addictions that a parent's had, all kinds of problems that come from that family trance. So, how does someone break the family trance? Number one, we need knowledge, support, and input from outside the system. Again, it's hard to see the system if you're working within it. You need help to see outside. You need to borrow other people's objectivity. And I think that's what's been helpful in group, in therapy, reading books, coaching, support groups, whether ACOA or CODA or whatever. It helps people to reframe and to change how they see that family trance and how they see their family. So they don't continue on seeing it the way they've always seen it and keep running into the wall and getting stuck. So we need help to see our givens. We need help to see those givens so that we can decide what we want our givens to be. Let me give you an example of a given. Here's a family trance rule. If I stand up for myself, then I'm hurting those in my family. That's believed by everybody in my family. Nobody stands up for themselves because that's perceived as either being selfish, self-centered, and it only hurts other people, and it doesn't continue the enmeshment that we are supposed to have. So there's a lot of resistance to that because that's the paradigm. That is a given in many families. Another given could be, I'm not worth having a relationship with. Another given can be, when someone is unhappy, it is my job to help them or to help them resolve it. Those are some givens that we may have learned from our family of origin. So we first must begin to see that we have givens, and what are they? Number two, we need to unpack those family rules, unpack the family trends, and unpack what we have come to believe, accept, and absorb within ourselves. For example, I remember a long time ago talking to someone, and he said, when my wife, who is controlling, expects me to read this book to improve our marriage, am I wrong to refuse? Now, it depends on what your paradigm is. What's your trance that you're in? His trance told him it was wrong to refuse that because she would be mad, but he would have to de-self to read the book just to make her happy, and my job is to make her happy, and that's my paradigm, that's my trance that I live in, and so she won't be happy, so that she won't be mad, I will read the book. But I don't want to, and then I end up having resentment towards her for doing it. So now I'm caught in the trance of having to do it and being stuck in the resentment and the lack of self-differentiation. So the family rule is, when someone asks you to do something out of their anxiety and get mad if you don't do it, then the rule is you do it. And that's a part of the family trance. And that's what's considered normal, and that's what he felt was normal. Now, it will temporarily ease the situation or ease the anxiety. The difficulty is it doesn't really fix the wife's anxiety, the wife's enmeshment and over-controllingness, and it doesn't fix the husband becoming more self-differentiated so he could actually be more affectionate, be more intimate, and share himself more with her. So it undermines all those things while making sure we accomplish this rule and accomplish this paradigm. So what we do in learning to undo those family trances is we unpack those rules and we go back and take a look at the family and unpack those things. It's actually quite freeing, it's quite illuminating, and it gives you a lay of the land, it gives you a map, and now you can make choices of maybe what you'd like to do. Oh, well, if that's the case, then maybe I'd like to change that given in my life. Okay, I think I could do that. Now, that may not be easy because, for example, in this situation, it may not make the wife happy. But the problem is it's kind of a, if I can say, zero-sum game that either she's going to be happy or you're going to be happy. That's not a good marriage when only one person ends up being happy. That's a problem, and that will cause problems in the marriage in the long run. Number 3, learn and begin to internalize new rules and standards of what is normal for us. For example, in this instance, I can say no to my wife about the book, then expect to feel guilt, because that's my norm, that's my normal trance. I do have to feel guilt about that. But I'm going to work to resolve the guilt, not work to resolve my wife's anxiety by reading the book. So I'm going to come at it from a different way, and I'm going to learn to feel less guilt and to be myself with my wife, rather than do the old paradigm and the old trance. When someone asks you to do something out of their anxiety, remember it is their anxiety, and get mad if you don't do it. Remember, they are choosing to get mad, and use getting mad because it works with you. I give myself freedom to not comply and give them the freedom to feel their anxiety and their madness if they wish, knowing I'm not the cause, nor am I to blame for them being mad. And that's a new paradigm and a new frame and a new understanding. And it breaks down the old family of origin trance, which says we must do it the other way. Number 4, claiming and determining what is going to be normal for me, which may or may not coincide with the family trance. Some things might, but some things might not. For example, the family has a secret. Dad is an alcoholic. Now, he functions, he's the vice president of a company, he still drinks too much and drinks too often, has problems with that, but he still functions, pays the bills, etc. But we don't talk about that in our family. That's not discussed, it's not to be talked about. The mom and siblings, let's say me, the mom and my siblings are still in denial. To label him an alcoholic is demeaning and mean in their opinion, and they don't believe he is, because that would be too horrible to think their dad is actually an alcoholic. But my new paradigm tells me he clearly is. I've gotten some outside help to look at my water in the tank, and the water in the tank's not very clear. Dad really is an alcoholic, and I never knew. Now I've come to see he has all the traits of alcoholism, and that I clearly see he has all the symptoms, and I can understand better why we have some of the problems that we have. While it is not my job to diagnose Dad, I will now live my life that, in my opinion, he is an alcoholic, and I will live accordingly to that. So when Mom comes to the family dinner alone, says Dad doesn't feel well, Mom covers for his excessive drinking. He was drinking too much and can't come to the dinner because he's not feeling well. And not feeling well is always the code for Dad is drinking too much. the child, or me, I can say, well, Mom, I hope Dad gets help for his not feeling well. Typically, Mom, Dad drinks too much and then can't participate in family events. I love him, but he needs to get some help. That's my opinion. Someday, maybe he will do so. Mom says, don't talk about your father that way. You know he's not an alcoholic. That I would respond, Mom, I've decided not to stay silent about Dad's drinking. It has been a problem and a secret for years. I'm not criticizing Dad. He is ill. I'm not going to play the game that he's not drinking, because we all know he is, and I'm just not going to play that game anymore. I still love him. I still care about him, but that's not a game I choose to play. A new paradigm has been established. I've stepped outside the family trance. Of course, Mom wants you back in the fold, and she wants you back in the family trance, and of course that's to be expected, and we understand that, and we plan for that. That's why we work on role playing and lots of things to support folks in doing those new behaviors. But Mom would like you back in the fold and under the trance and under the spell again. Only you can decide, I'm not going to be under the spell again and don't wish to. Fifthly, I think role-playing is a helpful learning tool for breaking the trance. I offer clients my objectivity to see outside the trance and to see outside the family. I do many role plays with clients, many scenarios. They play different family members, and I play the new paradigm to them. And I play them as though they have a new paradigm. Often they're not even aware they can even think that way. And that's what I think a therapist, a coach, a sponsor, someone in a support group can be of help to you to see outside your trance and to see outside the family walls of what is normal. And that's where we can begin to practice those new beliefs, understandings, because many times when we do role play, they always are stymied and go, I don't know what my family member would say to that, because I've never said that to them. How did you know to say that to them? Because I had some objectivity. Let me let you borrow that so that you can begin to come out of your trance as people helped me out of mine. If you're struggling with feeling stuck in the family trance and you want a new paradigm, you want some freedom, some hope, more happiness, more satisfaction in your life, more self-differentiation, which I think can produce some of those things, I want you to give me a call or send me an email, contact me, and I'll help you with that personal struggle of your own, your marriage, your family. See the screen for contact information that should be on the screen where you can see that. I hope you will join our YouTube channel. Please share this video with your social media. We'd certainly appreciate that. Write me for more information. I'll respond to every email. I want to thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.